you don't want to be doing orientation in this dark back corner somewhere. So making sure that that space that they're coming into is a warm environment and that it's conducive for learning and safety. They need to feel safe so that they can ask questions to make sure everything's clear before they are kind of put to work.
Are your seasonal staff returning and following years or seasons after the fact that they've been offboarded? If they aren't, it might be a bit of a red flag. Today, I'm actually joined with Leslie Wireback of Wireback Works, and she and I will be covering how your company can actually make the right first impression to foster that loyalty for future seasons. All right, let's get into it. In terms of making the right first impression, I'm going to point to this next slide that we have right here. It's actually a really cool case study from UW-Madison, and this is their agricultural program that they have here. And they really laid it out. There's a lot going on this slide, but they laid it out in terms of their top 5 steps in making sure that the company is showing up and showing out for their new employees. So first of all, talking about that initial welcome, making sure that you got the employee's name correct first and foremost, how they want to be referred to, looking into general information procedure, right? We're talking about those training materials, those basics, those FAQs are in place. Work time and pay, all that is checked out. It's clear to the employee. The job itself, right? Looking at that peer mentor, that buddy to help them out there, someone that they can kind of ask those questions to, those little idiosyncrasies that they might be coming across. And your philosophy and safety measures, what's the mission at hand here? What are you guys achieving? What are some safety precautions that they should actually really be taking into account? I think that's huge. My question for you, Leslie, is what are some of the key elements of a successful onboarding process that can actually leave a really positive first impression on seasonal employees and actually make them more likely to return into the future?
Yeah, I think the key is welcoming. Like, it needs to be welcoming to them, that they're not just a small part of the workforce. They are a critical part of what the company is doing and helping move them forward. In your case study here, the example about the name, I literally just read a book where the poor person's nameplate was wrong for her whole 12 months of employment.
Oh my God.
She reported it to HR, but she was just a temp. So they left it wrong. And it was a funny story in the end, but it was like, this is a terrible example of how to be doing this. So all of those details matter. I had someone else where they didn't get their name on their door until I think they had actually resigned. So if your culture is to have your nameplate or badges, make sure all of those details matter and are correct. So that's welcoming in that piece of it. I also think, gathering, it may be basic information, but also fun and unique information for sharing. So taking pictures of new hires, being able to share what they want to share. So here's some general categories of information we like to share, but have space for showing personality and what they do for fun. And it's not all about work, but so that people can say, hey, I saw that you have this hobby. That's really cool and want to talk to them. So again, it makes it feel welcoming. And I think highlighting the seasonal staff, so emphasizing their importance in the work environment, whether that's interns in their seasonal work and like the projects they completed, or we would, with our seasonal staff, we're able to serve X number more of customers. I think that really makes them feel part of the team and emphasizes their importance as well.
I really like that idea of making sure that existing workforce, existing staff, and new onboarded staff, seasonal employees really have a great relationship at the end of the day, and not necessarily forcing anyone's hand to the fire. I understand that this is shift-based work, right? It's really hard to get everybody even in the same room at a certain point. But when you maybe assign that buddy, taking them both out to lunch, making sure that, hey, they're both in this together, they're, having those conversations already from the get-go, they're feeling comfortable with one another. And eventually, I really do think that buddy is actually going to help assimilate those newer employees, that new employee into the culture a little bit more. So yeah, making sure that things like, again, like you said, their name is accounted for, it's correct from day one. It really will help actually in providing that, future onboarding, for the next season or the next time that you need to call upon somebody with a specific training or certification. They're going to love to come back because they're already assimilated. They're already familiar with a lot of the people there, the practices, whatever it might be. But yeah, you got the basics down. You got the welcome, you got the information, you got the time and pay, the job, and the philosophy already accounted for from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. In terms of steps that employers can take to ensure the first day is welcoming, informative, and engaging, what would you recommend in terms of actionable steps here?
I think clear directions is number one, what to expect. So whether that's arrival time, who's greeting them, all those details, providing clear directions. I'm a fan of company swag, whatever format is appropriate. If it's seasonal, maybe they're getting a hat or a shirt, something that makes them feel a part of that company and the culture. Creating a warm environment. So you don't want to be doing orientation in this dark back corner somewhere. So making sure that that space that they're coming into is a warm environment and that it's conducive for learning and safety. They need to feel safe so that they can ask questions to make sure everything's clear before they are kind of put to work. So the environment itself is critical.
I love that. And yeah, I think it kind of feeds into making sure that that feedback loop is available to them, that there's feedback mechanisms that they can actually reach out to, whether that's, employee surveys, like we have these shift-based surveys that are, after each shift, they get a survey sent out to them that's really quick, however you want to design it. It's really great to get some initial feedback from new hires and saying, hey, what is something that you are feeling we can do better on, or are you feeling, supported, safe, whatever it might be. And yeah, and making sure that those feedback channels are in full effect from day one. I think that's really important. In terms of some creative ways that employers have used or can recognize and reward hard work and dedication, what does that look like to you? What are some examples there to make sure that, throughout their employment, how can they boost morale, foster loyalty, and so forth?
So depending on the length of the season, I think providing recognition at certain intervals, maybe it's at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, so that they are recognized as part of that. Recognizing all of their service. So if they're here for how many months this year, and then they're coming back next year, that they get credit for that time frame, so they're not starting over again. I think that's a key one. Even returning employees receiving additional compensation, or maybe that's, for the length of the season, maybe there's different bonus for completing the season or bonus for referring others. Because if they have a great experience and you want them to come back, and then they can have a referral bonus for bringing someone else along and recommending that they come and stay the next season.
I love that. Yeah, I think bonuses are absolutely huge. I think that's a really important reward recognition program that, of course, is more than welcome, right? I'm sure people are never turning that down. But yeah, even small things I think are really huge. Like, I love the idea of a referral program, kind of getting their friends involved, I think is really fun. A lot of times seasonal employees, whether it's even summer or winter, whatever it might be, yeah, having a buddy to do that with. I always hear about siblings or, friends that come in and say, hey, I had a really great experience with this job last year. You should totally join me. It would be really fun this year. So yeah, kind of putting that in their ear, I think, is a really great idea.
Yeah. And you don't want to overlook opportunities like shout outs or thank yous. Any of the tangible recognition there is important too, especially because they're there for a short time frame. So you want to make sure that they're receiving that regularly.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. For sure. I think that's so key. To close out, I always like to ask my guest this last question. What are one or two top tips, actions, or takeaways our audience can leave with to more quickly onboard seasonal employees in the future?
Okay, I'm going to break the rules because it says one or two top tips. I have three.
Fair. Go for it.
So first is knowing what is critical for the process, as well as knowing your audience and matching those. My second is to automate what you can for ease and consistency. Leverage technology anywhere that that's possible. And the third one is don't leave out the human part. We're hiring humans after all, so make sure no matter how much you focus on technology, consistency, all of that, that you're also considering the whole human as you create your process.
Awesome. Leslie, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, seriously, that was super educational. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience did too. We'll have to have you come back for, the summer season, right? Maybe we'll talk about some of those differences between, the holiday hiring versus those in the summer. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, for those in our audience who are listening on YouTube, feel free to throw in a comment on your favorite part of this webinar, talking, a little bit about what those seasonal hiring practices look like for you guys. If you guys have returning employees coming back this year, I would love to hear any and all questions, comments, concerns, whatever it might be. Throw it in the comment box. I would love to interact with you guys. And until the next time, I will see you all at the next webinar. Have a good one.